Welcome to the Bret Boone podcast. I am Bret Boone. Today I'm joined by a 7-time Cy Young Award winner. I look at his credentials. He's got too many. 11-time All-Star, World Series twice. Ladies and gentlemen, really no introductions necessary. Roger Clemens, Rocket, thanks for coming on, man.
Booney, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, brother.
I hear you popped up at Yankee camp.
I did. Your brother, actually, it was pretty cool because I got a nice little text from him. Said, "Won't you get down here and come into camp and take a look at some guys and just to have you in camp would be great." So, I've done it before with the Astros. I popped into Red Sox camp a little bit. Like I said, I do stuff with the Astros Foundation, and I'm coming to Florida anyway to do a couple appearances, and then my youngest Cody's with Philadelphia, so it works out perfect. Had a wonderful time. Your brother got me up in front of the team, so I gave him a little Newt Rockney talk, and but it was good. I visited with probably 6 or 7 pitchers today, so it's cool. It kind of made me think back when I had the luxury and the privilege to pitch. And I think I was 21, 22 years old, my first couple of years in Boston, and we traded for Tom Seaver. And, I consider Tom Seaver the ultimate power pitcher. So it kind of felt like that I'm kind of reliving that and doing what Tom Terrific did for somebody like me. You do a lot of listening and watching.
I think it's cool, and I think the Yankees do a really good job with it. I'm really glad because you mentioned when we were playing, and I remember I grew up in this. My dad played my entire life. He was in the big leagues.
Absolutely, that's so cool.
So really, for me as a kid, it was kind of it wasn't from it wasn't I was spoiled, but that was just my life. I didn't know anything else. But once I started doing this for a living, and I was in a big league clubhouse as a player, when the old guys that I grew up watching, they'd come to visit, I thought it was awesome. And just to sit down and talk with these guys, I think a lot of clubs should do it. You go to a ball game and you can sit there for you in Boston or New York. I know you played in Toronto and Houston as well. But I always thought about it, and I talked to Aaron about it all the time. I said, I think it's really cool for a grandpa, a dad, and a son to go to a Yankee game. The grandpa can sit there and talk about, until recently, some of those old timers. The son's talking about Derek Jeter or Roger Clemens, and then the kid's there to see Aaron Judge. I think it's the ultimate experience. I think every club should do it with their past stars.
Yeah, I love it too, Boney. So, I mean, again, when I see Guidry, Willie Randolph, I see the Gator out there, Willie Randolph, and it's like again, I was fortunate to play with 2 historic teams, Boston and New York. When they'd have the old timer game, it was just like on the bench is a friggin' who's who, and so if I ever get a chance to write it down, what is the biggest lie you tell yourself is that I don't need to write it down because I'll remember it. Yeah. I got to start writing stuff down because, playing 9 holes of golf with Mickey Mantle when the Mick was struggling, or out at the Bob Hope tournament, and my playing partner is Yogi Bear, and so I mean, just this, I love the history part of it. I mean, I think that's what I'd be doing if I didn't play 24 years. I tell people that's what I did for a living. It's not who I am as a person. I loved it. I did it to my fullest. Like I said, my granny said it best. If you're going to be a ditch digger, you be the best damn ditch digger in the country. And got my work ethics from my mom. And, my pops passed away when I was 9. So my mom worked 3 jobs right there in Houston. And so she gave me my work ethic and everything like that. But she also wrote me a great poem about, when I got drafted by the Red Sox, I was like, where am I going? I had no idea. And she wrote me a nice poem about Fenway Park. But yeah, I got to be around a lot of history. Fenway Park, old Yankee Stadium, new Yankee Stadium's cool. It's kind of like you go to a stadium or you go to the mall and there's this baseball stadium there. But, as because you were up in the booth calling the game, man, we were into some massive, massive games, massive comebacks. There's a couple of times that I felt the upper deck shaking where I thought the place was going to fall down, but just great history. And like you said, you came from a wonderful baseball family. I felt privileged to play as long as I did because my boys that are playing now, and Cody, like I said, still with the Phillies, they made comments of it, hey, Pops, you stood right where Lou Gehrig gave his farewell speech, or where Babe Ruth, took his at bats. And so when you play long enough and they realize that, and that's pretty special.
I think that brings up a good point. I remember the end of my career last time, and I was thinking, this may be my last year. If not, it's close. And I remember going to Fenway Park the last time I was there, and I remember just kind of looking around. And I thought, all these years, I've kind of taken this place for granted. I particularly, especially the second half of my career, my bread and butter was hit the ball the other way. So I hated going to Fenway because that wall was so intriguing. It was so close. But the history there, and I kind of just looked around for the first time, and I thought, all these years I've just showed up here. My grandpa played here. And I thought, I just kind of took it for granted. I think as players, we don't take it for granted. It's just we're in a grind, and we've got to worry about tomorrow. We don't have time to smell the roses. Maybe you wouldn't be as good of a player as you are if you did take the time to kind of take it all in. It's such a grind for us. I got to worry about, I'm going to Yankees. I got to face Clemens, and I got to face Andy Pettitte. I don't have time to go look at the monuments.
Yeah.
And I never got out to Monument Park. Now I sit there and I kick myself going, I should have gone out there. I played there a million times, but I think it's little things like that when it's said and done, like you said, writing things down. We got to play a pretty cool game for a living and do it for a long time. And, it's not till you're kind of removed a little bit, at least for me, where I kind of appreciate a little more, like, wow, it was pretty cool having a uni on for all those years and not really thinking it was anything. It was something that I did for a living.
Well, your focus meter was where it needed to be. So, I like that about your brother too. When I talked to him, and it was fun for me today to sit back, and it was my first time to see him address a professional, squad, a professional team, and the expectations and getting guys. It's the same thing we talked about, it being focused. When I got up in front of you, asked me if I wanted to talk, and I said, I just hit on a couple of things that we talked about, about being focused. I hope everybody in the room was still a little pissed off about how it ended last year for him, because
Right.
you do all that work, you're not going to wear your second place ring at any point. And it was just like, and there's no days off when you, especially again, you bring a presence and a baseball name with you to the plate. So you're going to get my best. Your brother's going to get my best. I looked at Aaron Judge. I said, you're going to get my best. There's no days off. And and the same thing when you were at the plate. You had you got the bat through the zone, and you were one that again you gain people's respect because you can hurt somebody and change the course of a ball game pretty quick. So I always said that really in the American League, spending all my time in the American League, then jumping over I was pitching at 45 years old with the Astros when they were in the National League. You might have a few guys in the top of the order that won't hurt you, a couple guys with a pitcher at the bottom of the order. Coming to the American League, you got you leading off. You got a Soriano leading off with 30 bombs, 100 RBIs. Lay that little 92-mile-an-hour sinker in there, and you don't get it back sometimes. So you got to pay attention to detail. That was kind of my theme to the pitchers today in camp about the focus meter. I was watching a couple guys throw their bullpens. That stadium, George Steinbrenner Field, sits right next to a freeway. You can hear people honking. You can hear dump trucks going by. People are moving around in the cages. And I just asked it. He had a not a great bullpen. He's beating himself up. I said, well, first of all, it's late February, so you're already ahead of the game. And as you get deeper into spring training, your focus gets really in tune with just a catcher's mitt. I know Albert Pujols or Bret Boone is at the plate. I know who's at the plate. I know you're there, but I'm still focused on my runway. I mean, I'd have the ground crew guys mow the last mow job at Fenway and Yankee Stadium right down Broadway like a bowling lane, and it gave me great lines to get through to my catcher. I mean, so there's just little things that, again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir to some of these guys, but then they're like, really? You did what? I go, come on, dude. I said, when I'm warming up when I leave the hotel, I know which way the wind's blowing at the stadium. And Absolutely. I know when I'm warming up in the bullpen that it's going to be different when I get to the main mound. So I said, how in depth do you know? I love analytics, Booney. I'm kind of in the middle of the road. I'm not high or not low on it. I get it where they're going, but don't turn into a robot. on me. And I still believe, Mel Stoudemire, all my pitching coaches, really, I would be honest with them. And I said, I need you to give me an eye and a heart test before you come get me in the seventh inning or whatever. And yeah, you can hear me grunting, my mouth's open. I'm getting a little tired. We're at 120 pitches at the time. So there's a lot to cover where I don't really get into it with these other pitchers worry about glove side, arm side. And I'm like, dude, man, I said, I'm with you on that, but I'm just going to give you 3 hot points that'll get you to the promised land. I know they work because I did it for 24 years, So I enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm glad your brother asked me to come down. So I'm going to be in camp with him for another, I think, 4 days. And then I bounce out to get something done on the West Coast. And then I'll be back for another 4 days and they'll be on their way.
But I think it's awesome. And a guy like you coming in, when you talk, people are going to listen. I mean, just that little thing you talked about right there, farthest thing from my repertoire being a pitcher, but to have that bowling lane. And that's probably something a lot of these guys that play today, they've never heard that. And it's as simple as that. And sometimes I have a son-in-law that's plays with the Braves, young guy, couldn't be a better kid. And I kind of stay out of his way as much as I can. But when I'm asked, pull up a chair and we're going to have a talk. I'm not going to bug you. I'm not going to critique you.
Yeah, love that.
But and sometimes he's a young player. And I say to him, I said, listen, man, this game is so hard. Look what you've done here. Look what you've done here. At the end of the day, we can talk about all these numbers and what your angles are and this and that. At the end of the day, you're a hitter. And you just got to hit. Sometimes you got to get a good pitch to hit and knock the shit out of it and throw those angles out the window. Let's simplify. This is hard enough. I don't need to go have a BP session, move the ball around the cage going, that's good. I can hear it. I know that's good. I don't need a computer printout to tell me, okay, your exit velocity was this, so I can drive home and think about, well, why was my exit velocity this today, but it was this yesterday? Now I got something in my brain. It's almost like you're going to the kingdom and your son's going to get fit for clubs at TaylorMade. It's almost like some of the analytics nowadays in baseball, they're training like golfers. And I tell people all the time, golf is one thing. You got to hit a ball on a pin to a certain degree. Baseball, hooks and slices, they're doubles. So it's different, yet I think we're training in a similar way. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, but I'll just tell you this about golf. We're in trouble, Booney, when all of our clubs go the same distance. I'm getting in trouble now. It's like, damn, all my clubs are going to. No, but you're right. And I'm not so sure that some of those labs that you go to with golf don't tee you up a little bit. Next thing you know, you're hitting your 7-iron another 9 yards. You're like, wow. Yeah. And they just teed you up. But you said it perfectly. I stay out of the ball. All the boys played professionally, and being a pitcher, they're all hitters. So I kind of stayed out of their way. If they ask me a pointed question, I'll get pointed with them. There's sometimes when you just got to flat out say, hey, tonight that pitcher was just flat out better than you. I mean, that's just the bottom line. He was better than you, and yeah, I mean, we just kind of give them a real nice pointed answer. Same thing with the pitchers. I give them the hot points. I've told them I've had rookie pitching coaches that were nervous to talk to me with my credentials. I said, no, I need your eyes to focus on these 3 things that I do. And if I get out of balance with them, that's all you have. You don't have to come out to the mound. You just have to whistle from the dugout and tell me that feel tall. So you work downhill. Obviously, my steering wheel, I want that thing quiet and pointed mainly inside of that white stripe of right-handed batter, because I want – most of the guys said, Rocky, you always made me feel uncomfortable. You look like you're coming in on me the whole time. And I said, good. That's mechanics right there. I want you to feel uncomfortable. And that's pitching. 17-inch plate, make it a 24-inch plate. It's simple math. Again, so some of the stuff can get, like you said, too technical I said, guys are turning into robots, trying to, I said, it's easy to finish forward where you're falling off and doing this or doing that. It's a real simple, it's a real simple fix. Some big, strong dudes I ran into, a couple pitchers thick, even thicker than I were. They look like defensive ends, and you could tell they could get a little muscly with their left side. And he says, one ball comes out of my hand good. And I said, listen, I stood here and watched your whole bullpen. Your 2 pitching coaches were behind you, and every time about every 4th pitch, they said, good. good. And I don't know if they were looking at the screen with the spin rate and all that stuff. But
Right.
I said, did you hear him say good? And he goes, yeah, I did. I said, so you have to be your own pitching coach. That's a ball that you threw very well. You got to be able to repeat that. Another guy was just throwing. He wasn't pitching. I said, stop right now and reset. You pitch. Every time you do anything, you pitch. You don't throw. You're a pitcher. You pitch. And it's quality. You don't have to be out here for, unless you're working on your breaking ball or your grip or something's not right that you're doing. But everything we do is quality, not quantity. And you pitch. I mean, my bullpens, I had a routine and I pitched from right from the get-go. I come in from long toss. I told them your core work. You're responsible for three, you how you are physically, being in shape. That's all on you. I mean, you got to come in, you got to be in shape, you got to be ready to go. The second part of it, Booney, is the mental part of the game. The mental part of the game, I'm going to friggin' crush you. And that's why I told these guys, take that little, as you get mid-March, where you're a couple weeks from starting the season, you got to click that focus meter a couple times. Because you got to get locked in right now. And if you're locked in on that mid, Albert, whoever it is, Trout, Ohtani, they're stepping in the box. You're still trying to execute where you want to go. And you're a big league pitcher. You should get the baseball within a baseball of where that catcher's asking you to get it.
Right.
If he's asking it for a way and that catcher's got to go all the way back across, you can't have that as a professional pitcher. I tell the A-ball guys that you're getting paid to do this. You're one of the more elite players, even in the minor leagues. So it's just good stuff to get their mind and their head on target. I told them my third part of my game was I pitched with some emotions. And, think about my mom passing, my granny passing, my arm was underwater out there. I'm trying to find something to motivate myself to get through the game. And I tell people, in 24 years, I showed my ass out there a couple of times, but you know what? I care. I care about how I go about things, and that's part of it. So you're just trying to, like you said, it's a grind, man. It's even though I'm, one of my sayings is, even though I'm only throwing on every fourth day or whatever it is, that my only day off is the day I pitch, and that held true with the work that's done. I had to get on the guys too. I said, hey, I'm not getting on your routine, but you just got done throwing 3 innings in pretty good heat. It wasn't super hot. And next thing you know, you're back inside riding a stationary bike in AC for 8 minutes. That is nothing. You're talking about your elbows cranky. If you throw a headset and your music on and hit that warning track for about 2 miles for about 14-minute run, you won't believe how that flushes your body out and what it does for your legs. That bicycle in the air condition is not the same. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree.
Put your running shoes on and start running laps, man. I'm telling you, it's a whole different world.
And I think, because I'm kind of with you as far as I'm a big believer in gut from a managerial standpoint. I'm a big believer in your manager lives with you for 162 games. If I'm managing Roger Clemens with the credentials you have and you're my horse and I come to the mound, I might not always be thinking I'm taking him out. I'm going to make my decision based on how you answer my question. I know the Roger, when he gives me a certain answer, I know he's done. I know when he gives me this answer, I got to get out of his way and he's keeping the ball. But we know that just from the interaction we have from a team unit, from the relationship you have with your skipper, with your coaches. You learn each other, tendencies, and it's not, well, the computer says we're going to take him out here. No. The computer, whatever the computer, I'm going to see how Roger answers me. I can shut my eyes and listen to what he says. I can feel if I'm going to take him out or not. That's why to this day, you talk about that 03 season when I was in the booth and you guys are playing the Red Sox and Grady Little takes out Pedro Martinez, and they asked me, "What do you think about?" Or he kept him in. And then he got chastised for it pretty good for keeping him in. And they asked me my opinion. I said, "My opinion?" I said, "Pedro's the man." I said, "Pedro's credentials allows him to dictate in that situation. If he's the 5th starter, if he's some good pitcher, he might not have as much leeway. But for me, skipper, I hear what I hear from my guy. I'm going with him. I'm riding him. We're gonna sink or we're gonna swim." So I was always very I don't know, with that Grady move, I always backed him. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do if Pedro Martinez, your guy, tells you, "Get out of here, skipper. This is my game"? I got to say it's your game. It's if he says that, it's probably better than whatever I got coming in from the bullpen.
Yeah,
So
it's a
I'm with
no.
you on the analytics.
Yeah, it's a no-win situation. I mean, he gets a pop up and a punch out, and you look like
Oh, you're the
yeah,
greatest.
you're the
Yeah.
best. So yeah, you're dead on. But like you said, yeah, when you come out, and you're asking me if I can get this next guy, you don't want to hear I think so,
Right.
or I'm gone. So yeah, that the language is big. Mel Stoudemire and I, when I got, I pitched when I was pitching from 40 years old to 45. My last year, I think I was 45 years old. We had a great system. I'd get to the sixth inning or come in after the six full innings, and Mel would be like, "Hey, I hear you grunting out there. I think you're getting towards the end of your rope." And then we had a thing that when I went back out for the seventh, and we were eating outs now. That first set. So my 8 warm-up pitches, Booney, were crisp. I was on target, a little bit more crisper, knowing that when first hitter gets in the box in the seventh, that if I hit him or I walk him or he gets a base hit, I'm gone. So now I'm really emptying the tank. Boom, and I get an out. And then the next guy pop up. Now, the best closer in the history of the game, he only has to get 5 outs for me now, or 4 outs, because I just ate 2 more guys, and then they come get me. So that gave me a little more incentive to really empty the tank and lock in on each individual hitter instead of hey, our bullpen spent. I can't go out and have a hiccup and get knocked out of this game in the 3rd inning or something. So yeah, there's all kinds of intangibles, and you, like you said, you got to know your players, and yeah, it's fun. I mean, again, these guys, I think it was Cash. We were walking. They all wanted to take a big photo of us, the guys, the past players, the past champions that were in camp. And I grabbed Cash because I wanted Cash. I love Cash, but I looked at him and it got a big laugh out of everybody there. All the pitchers walk with him. I said, "Hey," I said, "I see the money you're passing out right now. The pitchers, they only go 3 innings, Cash. I think I'm pretty sure I think I can go 3 right now, man." Satchel Paige did it way back when. So
and I'm listening to you talk about your plan for the 7th inning, and I'm laughing. The game has changed so much. Back in the early 2000s, in the 90s, for you in the late 80s, your money wasn't put in the bullpen. Bullpen was a place where you weren't good enough to start in the big leagues. That's where you go. Nowadays, they're grooming you to be a big bullpen guy that throws 100, comes out of the pen, and you start an A-ball. You're a bullpen guy. So the bullpen, there's a lot more finances there. They spend a lot more of their equity in the bullpen. Different game. Guys are taught, oh, you go 5 innings, which I know a guy like you can't stand watching it. But it's funny with the game the way it is today for you to have to be talking about your 7th inning approach when you're kind of maybe out of gas or you just got to get through it to get it to Mariano. It's interesting how much things have changed. Your style of pitcher, interesting to me. I remember coming to the big leagues when I was a kid, 92. I got to face Rocket. I've been watching you growing up. I've been watching you from your Texas days. But you had a certain style. You had a style. Nolan had it. Pedro to a degree. I played with Randy Johnson for a year, and he had that intimidation as much as any pitcher to ever pitch. Before my time was a Gibson type. But when they'd have that shot of you from behind home plate, you got the glove up, you got the hat down, you got that kind of look. Was that for you, or was that for me, the hitter? Or was it premeditated? Was it something that was just how you were?
Yeah, no, I think it was me, just locking in on my mechanics, practice perfect. You see, like you said, you see me behind the glove, and I always had to make sure because, again, Bunny, when you ask me the question, I think about my early days, and I'm on the bench with the Red Sox and a ton of veterans: Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, Marty Barrett, Hursty, Don Baylor, and the two that really set apart, which I want to say I was always a student of the game, and coming out of Texas, like you said, we were built to win, and I thought it was going to be a way of life to win every year. But Dwight Evans and Marty Barrett were the best I've ever seen at studying a pitcher and getting the signs, what he was doing, fanning a changeup. Even Doc Gooden at one. Doc didn't have that piece of leather on his glove. And for some reason on fastball, he would stay here. And when he throws breaking ball, his pointing finger would come straight up on his hook. So that was an easy get. But the guys are fanning changeup. Some guys come set at their chin to get the curveball a little longer. They would come up by their nose, and if they got them, they got them, and it made the hitter a 250 hitter, a 350 hitter. So I started shadow boxing in mirrors and stuff like that, and my hat down and my glare and everything that I had there. It was great for my prayer position where I started, where I would go every time. I just practiced it. So when the lights did get bright and the heat was on you, you didn't go back to any bad habits. You had good habits. So that's what I always thought about mechanic wise. But yeah, watching Nolan, I do a roundtable sit down with the great Jack Nicklaus for his Play Yellow a couple times, and Jack and I had a really cool deal where I was showing Jack has all of his grandkids, and he was wanting to learn how to grip the baseball to show his grandkids or something. We had a great talk, but the paying customers at the event that were making all the wonderful donations for the foundation, they asked a couple questions, and it always went to, like you said, that Rocket, you're intimidating. Jack, you're intimidating, and da-da-da-da-da. Jack leaned over and said, you know why we're intimidated? I said, no, sir, Miss Nate. He goes, because we win. I said, well, you're right. I said, you could be really think you're intimidating and you just get beat all over the place. And, like I said, guys like you in the big league, I tell these guys that are chasing velocity, I said, do you understand guys in the big leagues can put wood on a bullet? I mean, they're that good. And, these guys that throw that hard, you're going to make a couple mistakes. They're going to run into a few. So that's where, an intimidation factor, it wasn't for show. I just think I had a little bit of football mentality on the mound, but yeah, I mean, I learned how to pitch inside early at Fenway Park because I was facing Dave Kingman's, Luzinski, Carlton Fisk. I'm facing some gas house guys, softball hitting, I mean, they're on the plate and they're not moving. And my mind wanted to get it in there, but my booty didn't, and I'd leave it just a little over the plate, and it goes a long way over that green monster. Yeah. So it almost self-taught me at Fenway Park that I gotta pitch in, I gotta pitch away, and you don't pitch, you don't pitch inside to hit guys, you pitch inside to expand the plate. Now in 24 years, there's 12 or so games like that you got to clean up a game, and I hated it when it was really the other pitcher before me that was supposed to do that crap. It falls in your lap the next day and you're not convicted and you end up hitting a guy. And then the next guy hits a 2 or 3 run homer off you and you've screwed your game up. Those are the days that would really chap me. So, but yeah, I mean, it's again, it's fun seeing these guys. I get it. And like I said, with the analytics and stuff, I just want them to be, make sure they stay human and not robotic.
I recently had Jake Peavy on the podcast.
Oh man,
he had a great story about you, and I'm going to let you tell it. Now I remember, I forget what it's called, but for those of you listening to the podcast, watching the podcast on YouTube, in every big league clubhouse, there's jars, and it's a rub that you put on, and
oh god,
you got mild heat, you got kind of the medium heat, then it's kind of like a dark maroon.
Oh,
and I never went near that stuff. The most I'd get is like if my shoulders bother me, I might use that middle one, but I never used the big one. I remember in Philadelphia, growing up as a little kid, my dad, after a game, he had back problems, and this is when he's young. He would go head to toe his back with that darkest one, and I just used to look at him. Now I get to the big leagues and I'm using it, but I'm using the light or the medium. I'm going, Dad used to bathe in this dark one.
That'd make your skin peel off.
Anyway, give me the Peavy story. Was it a WBC game?
Yeah. So Jake and these guys see me for the first time. This got some good life, but here's and they the story. It's a giant myth, and it gets larger and larger when Peavy and these guys say it. But what happened, Booney, was, and you're right, it's called Kramer Jezik, and it's
Kramer Jezik.
Yeah, and there's one that's hot, which is plenty hot enough. Now you're talking to a guy too that I'm allergic to menthol. It's got some menthol in there, so when I put it on, my skin's going to break out a little bit too. After the game, fast forward to after the game, I've got to have rubbing alcohol and try and get it out of my pores because the stuff will light you up, as you know, when your pores. And it's really good in April, May, in some of these cold towns and these cold places. So you got Kramer Jezik. The number 2 one is Red Hot, which is what you were using. And
Right.
then there's
That's as fit as I get.
and then the one your dad was using, it was like
Oh,
you had to order it from a doctor's office. It was called Capsulin, and it was like maroon, like you said. And I tried that just one time to wake my shoulder up, and I was on fire. And so freezing cold, I was having trouble with my inside of my leg. My groin was, it wasn't torn, but it was any pitch it could go. So I said, dude, I got to go get it. Now under your game pants, you got your half sliding shorts or cotton sliding shorts. So I pulled my
right.
cotton sliding shorts up, and I put this red hot on my groin. And it's in between the game. It's like second inning, and I got 2 outs happen real quick. I got to bust back out. I slide up my shorts, put my pants on, buckle up. Now, by the time I get out there, all of a sudden, I realize I got some of it underneath my, way too close to my, to you know where.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm stomping like a damn horse out there, and I'm breathing hard. And now you're talking about looking intense and pissed off. I'm on fire out there. So I finish that in. I go back up and I put some baby powder on there and some rubbing alcohol, trying to get it off, but can't do it. But from that, it became that since I had a great game, I think I punched out like 15 guys. Then it went to, I'm doing it every game. I'm putting it on there every game and peeving the. So now it gets around the league. I think to him, he tried it. El Duque tries it, and he started crying. It got him so bad. He started crying. And, but it got to be such a big deal that next thing you know, I'm doing it every game on purpose that way. I said, are you crazy? Just like you said. I mean, you put the regular, the lowest amount of heat, that thing will just peel your skin off. So, but it makes for a good story. And, but that happened once, and it didn't have to happen again because it was not fun out there.
You're talking a little bit earlier about the mental side of the game. It's my favorite part of the game. Hitting's great. The physical in the cage working's great. But the second half of my career, and I've talked about it a lot, I learned a lot from Edgar Martinez.
Wow. Nice.
My second time back to Seattle, I sat down with him and I just kind of picked his brain. I said, and he said, Boone, what's your plan? So we came up with something, and we used to call it 5 deep. I've talked about it a lot, but what we started doing is when you're up 5th that inning, we start going through a checklist. Who's on the mound? What did I do against him? What have I done this series? The bullpen's coming in. Who could possibly come in? Who's hitting in front of me? Who's hitting behind me? I'd go to Edgar. He hit behind me my Seattle days. I'd say, Poppy, this guy coming into the game right here, what's your history with him? He's either Boone, I wear him out, or, I haven't had much success. If he hasn't had much success, they might pitch around me a little bit. If Edgar Martinez tells me I wear this guy out, they're probably going to come right after me. That's intel that we've got to have. I got to a point in my career where I could leave the on-deck circle. I had my plan. I think the greatest I've ever watched do it and execute from an offensive standpoint was Manny Ramirez. This guy was unbelievable in a batter's box, and he would not waver from his plan. And I tell our guys in the bullpen, I say, be careful what we've been getting him out on all day, because late and it's close. You throw that same pitch, we might be going home early. And more times than not, I saw Manny do that. I started incorporating this. When I left the on-deck circle, boom, I've got my plan. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I always felt long-term, it's going to be my best chance to be as good as I can be. Now, there was one exception. If I've got an elite pitcher out there that's really watching, or a catcher that I really respect that's watching everything I do, I want to hear it from you on the mound. As a pitcher, when you're facing certain hitters, and let's say I used to sit on breaking balls all the time. I'm not going to try to let anybody know what I'm looking for, but obviously I'm probably not looking for a fastball, especially with people, runners in scoring position. But there were times where I'd look at the catcher. I knew he was watching. I knew he knew what I was doing. I might have to call an audible here. As a pitcher, would you watch the hitters, their body language, how they took a pitch, to kind of say, oh, okay, he's looking for this. He's looking for something off speed, or stick with your plan? Did you watch us and how we approached you, and would that change up the pitch you threw?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple really important things. I mean, I tell my boys that, I'm watching the catcher call the game against them more than the pitcher. Because again, with PitchCom, Booney, it's another deal where I said, you've turned into a thrower now. You used to pitch when I watched you before, but now you get that little button and it yells, it tells in your fastball, and you just wind up and heave a fastball with no purpose. So I'm really paying it. I said, you pay attention to who that starting catcher is and how he's trying to break you down.
Right.
And that's super important. Again, I knew who the hitter was. I knew if he was hot. And in my first half of my career, we had advanced scouts that would go watch and come back and give us information. Same thing when you got to the playoffs. So if I know that you're swinging it and you're hitting it, just like you said, in a 2-to-1 game, you might get lucky if I give you one good pitch to hit. I'm going to let you get yourself out. And if I know you're the hot, nobody else on the team is going to hurt me. I said, I know you and maybe one other guy, but I have no problem walking you in a tight game right there. So yeah, there's stuff going. It's no different than when you come to the end of the season and you might be in a pennant race and there's a guy on second base and Manny Ramirez is at the plate with 99 RBIs, and I know he's trying to get 100 to get a $2 million bonus. I'm not throwing him a strike. And I know that. I know his stats. And I tell everybody else in the deal, don't throw him a strike right now. So you got it's getting paying attention to detail. And Edgar, I mean, what a professional hitter. You guys could have somebody there to chew on and talk to together. So that dude was a tough out too. I mean, he, like you said, I would have my catchers. The main thing I had them watch is when my split was on. I don't know why they would want to scoot up a couple inches, but some guys moved, and my catch would be like this or point to my eyes that now you just bounce it a little, closer to the top of the plate instead of the back point of the plate. It's no different than Jorge did with when left-handers started backing off the plate on Mariano because he's running the cutter in on them. They would back off the plate, and Jorge would just follow him in there another 2 to 3 inches. Just keep following him in. So it's somewhat being a student of the game, but more so just paying attention to detail. If you're in tune with what you're doing, like you said, if you're locked in, and yeah, you might miss some of the history at a couple of the stadiums, but if you're locked in, I mean, you're doing your job. So I think that's just super important where guys are paying attention to detail.
Yeah, I have the catchers that paid attention. I really didn't like. I'd go up there sometime, a bases loaded situation. I'm sitting on a breaking ball. First pitch heater down the middle, Veritek would lift his mask up and go, "Guess you're not looking for a fastball." Oh boy, here goes the cat and mouse. Do I change my plan? He knows what I'm doing, and that's what that was my favorite part of the battle between pitcher and hitter. We talked about growing up the way I did. You had boys that grew up watching Roger pitch. You got to spend time with him after. One, like you said, right now, Cody's with the Philadelphia Phillies. I have a son that was playing in the minor leagues as of last year. The way my dad brought me up, he was very hands-off. Matter of fact, he was playing all the time, and he didn't get to see me play that often. But I kind of heeded his advice, and that's how I raised all my boys. If you want to talk, pull up a chair. But I wasn't that guy that was critical and drive home from the Little League game. And what are you doing here? No, it's if you want to talk, we'll talk about it. And I'm going to try to be constructive and just give you some advice. How is that for you having kids now? One of your sons playing in the big leagues, you being a pitcher, him being a hitter. I know for me watching my son, and he's a shortstop, it was tougher. It was tougher watching him and living and dying with his 0 for 4, his 1 for 4 than any of my 0 for 4s. How has it been?
Oh, you're dead on, brother. I mean, it's you just I think I would be more nervous if they pitched. All my guys are hitters, so watching them play position and hit, I'm pretty good about that. I watched some of my friends that have their kids pitching and they were pitchers and they just lapped the ballpark, man. They're nervous as ever. But I got the 2 grand boys now. My oldest one, Kobe, who played 10 years. So I'm Poppy Rocket now. They're 8 years old. And so I get to watch them. And but yeah, I mean, I tell the other dads, even my guys that I pitched in college with, my friends Boone that I pitched in college with, and even some of the pro ball players, I said, don't forget how hard the game is. Don't forget, like we said when we started this podcast, that how difficult it is. I told a couple of guys today, hey, bottom line, you're going to suck a lot at this game. Just suck a little less than the next guy. And that's what you got to do. I mean, the game is very, very difficult. And even like when they're watching they're going crazy when their 12-year-old makes an error at third base. And I said, do you understand how fast that ball's coming at the 12-year-old off another 12-year-old's bat, and he's trying to process? It looks real methodical to us sitting in the stands, but that kid's trying to process that. And that's what I encourage dad. Instead of yelling commands during the game and this and that, make your little mental note when you get in the car and you're driving home 30 minutes after the game, turn the radio off or whatever it is in the car and go over a couple things about, I tell them it takes zero talent to hustle. I mean, take somebody like Derek Jeter, hits a comebacker to the pitcher. There's chalk coming off of his shoes, going down, busting through, breaking the tape at first base. So, there's a lot to be learned by that. Somebody's always watching. So, again, it's a great game. It's very difficult. People, again, these friends of mine that were great high school or college players, they sometimes forget how difficult the game is. You got to remember that.
Roger Clemens played 24 years. Close your eyes. You're sitting in a clubhouse. You won 2 Cy Youngs in Toronto. Everybody knows you as a Rocket from Boston, the Yankee. You won a World Series there. You won a World Series in Toronto. You won 2 Cy Youngs. Close your eyes. You're getting ready for a game. What's your most vivid memory? What clubhouse are you sitting in?
So that's for me, Booney. When you asked the question, I wanted to make it to the big leagues in time to face Reggie Jackson, and Reggie and I are really close friends. And he does some work with the Astros. I did a couple of charity things for his Mr. October deal, so he's come to the house and brought a group of dudes to hit batting practice off me. A fun little auction item. But yeah, Reggie Jackson. I had the opportunity real early in my career. He was a California Angel at the time.
Yeah.
But obviously I was watching him when he was hitting those 3 home runs in the World Series. And I got to face Reggie at Fenway Park. And I was like, I remember myself behind the mound, retying. My shoes weren't untied. I was just untying them and retying them to buy time, because I didn't want to turn around and make eye contact with this dude with his half helmet and his glasses on. And but that was a great deal of fun for me to face Reggie. And he got a few electric fastballs from me. I think he always teases me that I think the scout said I was at 93, 94 miles an hour. And then when he got in the box, I threw him 3 straight pitches at 98 miles an hour. He goes, "What's the deal?" And I go, "Well, you're Reggie Jackson. That's why you're getting some gas." And so it was fun facing Reggie. I think I told you earlier, obviously growing up, I didn't have the video, but I had Sports Illustrated's 8x10s that I would tear out of the Sports Illustrated and look at Tom Seaver's leg drive and watch Nolan Ryan's leg kick. So I was fortunate enough to watch those 2 dudes and how they went about it. So I just had I picked on some really good guys to kind of watch. Thank goodness, even from high school, but my high school coach never really jacked with my mechanics. I did not throw hard in high school. I graduated early. My body wasn't mature, but I threw about 85 miles an hour. And I tell the kids I was the 3rd best pitcher on the team, but I had a little Bugs Bunny curveball. When the other guys would wet the bed, coach would bring me in. And I threw strikes. I filled up the strike zone. And fortunately, I had a wonderful pitching coach in Boston named Bill Fisher, who had Tom Seaver in Cincinnati. And I spoke at Fish's funeral not too long ago in Council Bluffs. And to this day, he still holds the record, Booney. I think 91 consecutive innings without walking a guy. So he always preached that. In my 20 strikeout games, he was with me on one, called me on the other one in Detroit, and said, "Hey," he called me Smokey after Smokey Joe Wood. And he said, "You know what you did?" And I said, "Yeah, Fish, I struck out 20. He goes, "Well, I'm more proud that you didn't walk a single batter in those games." And so that was always, in the big leagues, that was always something that I tried to focus on too. But again, good stuff from different guys, different veterans. Jimmy Rice, took me under his wing and told me how to dress on the road trips and how to tip the clubbies and what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. So I had some good mentorship floating around during those times too.
I got a few more. I'm going to let you out of here. Okay. For those of you listening to the podcast, I had my share of failures against the Rocket. I have my share of punch outs. And I want to see if he remembers this. Do you
Well, I
remember?
know. From what I can, when you're talking about it, I can remember you didn't get cheated on some of them. I was
Okay.
letting that
No,
thing
no,
go.
I got you one time.
Did you run into one?
I took you deep one time. You don't remember this?
Where
Now it's
at? Where'd you get me?
we're early 2000s. I think
Oh,
we're at
damn.
Yankee Stadium or at old Yankee Stadium, and my helmet came off.
I think I remember this.
And I remember I hit it. My helmet has never fallen off in my life. I leave the
There's got
box.
to be video of that.
I'm 5 steps out. I don't know what to do. I can't run around because I had the blonde spiked hair. You went through a phase too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had the blonde spiked hair. I said, I cannot run around the bases without my helmet on. It's disrespectful, but what do? I'm 8 feet out of the box. Do I go back? I end up just running. And I feel, when you scold your dog and they come to you with their tail between their legs.
was
I've
I
seen
was I
I've seen
grinding?
video. No, I wasn't
Okay.
looking at anybody. I was
Okay.
so
Good.
embarrassed. I just was running around the bases like I did something
I
wrong. I got
remember
home.
this. I remember this.
Edgar in the same game hit a homer. His helmet fell off on accident. He comes into the dugout, and I go, how does our helmets fall off? I've never seen your helmet fall off. I know mine's never fallen off in the same game. Anyway, I guess the bat boy comes over to me after the game, and he says, hey, Rocket told you, Booney. I knew you were kidding. He said, Rocket told you to keep your helmet on if you ever hit another home run. I said, well, I've been playing against him 14 years. I got lucky enough to hit one. But no.
Oh, my gosh.
I'll leave it with this. You talk about old Yankee Stadium. I remember I've been to the new place one time early in Aaron's tenure as the manager, and I hadn't been back in a long time to New York. Last time I was there was probably 05 or 06, and I came in from the where you park your car, and a lot of the same guys that you greet when you come to the ballpark when we were playing were still there working in the tunnel. Hey, Booney, we haven't seen you in a long time. And the question I asked everybody before I even got to see the stadium, I said, old Yankee Stadium or new? And across the board, they're like, are you kidding me? Old Yankee Stadium. There was something special about it.
Yeah.
You got me in 99 when I was with the Braves. You guys swept us in the World Series. I think you pitched game 4. The Ghost came out. Aaron told me his time there. Jeter would tell him, hey, wait for the Ghost to come out. In 01, we were there in a playoff series. The 9/11 year, you guys beat our Seattle Mariner team. Another time the Ghost came out. But just speak a little bit before I let you go on that old Yankee Stadium, how special it was. I remember you could close your eyes and you knew you were somewhere special where big things had happened.
Yeah, a lot of special games, like you said. There's just some crazy comeback wins. Just going through the locker room door for the first time. You got the interlocking NY on the carpet. You're supposed to walk around it, not across it. I had that monster game in 01, game 3. We had lost 2 in Arizona. I could not afford to have a hiccup early or late in that one. A lot of heat on my fingertips to go out there and do well. Joe Torre came up, said some things, but also President Bush, 43. We were closer. Being in Houston, 41 didn't live too far from us there in Houston. But I knew 43 a little bit, and he threw out that first pitch with a bulletproof vest on. I remember, just how heavy the air and thick it was, and I didn't realize Mr. Steinbrenner brought back, I don't know how many hundreds of firefighters that had lost loved ones and families. That was an unbelievable game. I think you can visualize in your mind him winding up throwing a perfect strike at Yankee Stadium. I remember just you asking me the question. Every time I got done warming up in the bullpen, I had a little thing with Babe Ruth, because he started in Boston, came to the Yankees. So I'd get done warming up, and you'd see me push my cap up, and I'd get the sweat off my forehead. And on his monument, I walked right by the Babe Ruth's monument, so I'd rub that sweat on his forehead and tap him twice. So I kept that thing pretty polished over the years, and so yeah, that made me reminisce about that. So yeah, just the history. Like I said, I'll go all the way back, Boney, and the boys, mention stuff when they start realizing, and that hey, you were right there where Yogi was, and the DiMaggios and Manals, and it just list goes on and on. There was, like I said, I still, I still think Babe Ruth number 3 should be retired universal. I mean, he's baseball. Back in the day when it was failing and it was going to go under, he just kept the game alive. So I think his number 3 should be hanging in every stadium.
Yeah, that's it. I think there would be a push for that. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. It's
Yeah.
Apple Pie Chevrolet. It's Babe Ruth. Babe
That's
Ruth
it.
started it all, you know?
Absolutely, baby.
It's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Aaron always told me, you know, we haven't, I'm sure we've met a few times at some functions, maybe an all-star game, but Aaron always, when he got to be teammates with you in New York, he goes, Bret, he goes, I said, I don't like Clemens. I want to get him. He goes, let me tell you, he's right up your alley. You'd love to be a teammate. Usually that's the case.
Yeah.
The guys on the other side, but man, what an unbelievable career. You're one of those guys. I'm going over this podcast and I'm getting ready. I know how good Roger was, but then you see the numbers. It's like, it's the Hank Aaron of the pitching side. So one of the greatest to ever do it. 7 Cy Youngs, all century team. Like I said, the list goes on and on, but I appreciate you doing this for me, Rocket. This is awesome. All the best. Have a good time in Yankee camp for the rest of the time. Tell Cody, best of luck this year.
I'll tell him. Thank you for that.
We'll catch up when we catch up. Man, you're coming here, San Diego, to do the TaylorMade, do the Kingdom.
Yeah. Coming out your way there.
If you want to play golf at the Bridges, give me a call.
I need to come sneak up in the booth with you one time, do an inning or two with you. You're pretty good at it. We like it.
You got it. All right, Roger. I appreciate it. For those of you watching the Boone podcast on YouTube, check it out. For those of you listening, downloading on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Till next time, we'll see you there.